Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. And, you know, we're kind of winding down the semester. We got 2 episodes left, this one and then, of course, our award show that we do every year, the first annual 3rd edition of the award show. Tristan Harley here with Cooper Melder. And to start things off, I kind of don't want to talk about sports for a minute. I want to kind of ask Cooper a silly question. But, Cooper, who do you think would win, gorillas versus a gorilla or 100 men?
All right, so the age-old question that's been going around, oh, man. Because everyone's feeling like if it's 100 dudes just charging them, 100 men.
Yeah.
I mean, are we just 100? What if it's like 100 men from 18 to, let's say, 28, easily.
Okay.
But if you get 100, maybe like you start getting up to 50-year-old men and older, I feel like they're not going to be able to move as much. But 18 to the ages 18 through 28, 100 men all at once, yes. But I think if it's one-on-ones, 100 one-on-ones, the gorilla's going to win every time. But
You don't think the one-on-ones can wear them out?
no,
No.
it's just going to chunk them.
Brock Lesnar versus the gorilla.
The gorilla.
Well, that answers the age-old question I wanted to ask Cooper this week on the show. But no, in all seriousness, we are winding down the semester. Of course, if you're wondering why I sound like I've been hacking up along or my voice is shot, it's because I've been dealing with a head cold the past couple of days. So we're in recovery, but it's not gone just yet. But, you know, we are winding down the semester.
Yes.
Countdown to graduation is on. You know, it's been a lot of fun.
We're almost under a week.
Yeah, we're almost under a week, and, you know, we'll get into this more next week. But I got to ask, Cooper, what's your favorite moment on Red Wolf Roundtable?
I mean, favorite moment on Red Wolf Roundtable, thing that we did as a whole, I mean, like you said, we'll get into more of it next week, but got to be the Ohio State trip. I mean, that was like the first big thing we did. We got nominated for awards, and so the Ohio State trip, being able to go to the Horseshoe, our first road trip we took with ASU-TV, has got to be at the top spot.
Right, and I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that, you know, we've done that hasn't worked. You know, we tried to do a mock draft on the show. That didn't work out for the
I remember
draft.
that was I forgot about that. Oh, man, that was terrible.
We did your top 5 Sunbelt opponents, and we used an old picture of Mr. Sullivan for the cover of the opponents. We've been on a green screen. We've done a lot on this show. It's been a lot of fun, but no, I mean, I'm looking forward towards the award show next week. Of course, you know, it's kind of our last hoorah, you know, the last show of the semester for us. And, you know, this year, of course, we're going to have the same categories like Rookie of the Year, Best Moment of the Year, Coach of the Year. But you never know. There may be some new categories to fit the current state of Red Wolf Roundtable. But yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to get one called the Dummy of the Year. I don't think that got approved.
No, because we were going to give it to Keith Heckendorf last year. And
that or we were either going to give him that or to the Crime Butch.
Yeah. But no, I mean, you know, it's been a lot of fun. You know, it's not going to be a super serious episode this week, just kind of reminiscing on the fun times and preparation for next week. But, you know, today we're going to talk about some baseball and some spring football on the show. Of course, you know, just starting to talk about baseball a little bit. You know, they beat Georgia State last weekend at home.
Yeah, got the sweep.
You see in the Sunbelt records now, they're above 500. And I don't know what it is about Georgia State, but every time Arkansas State plays them, I feel like I've gotten sick in some way.
You know, it was a crazy weekend, nothing less to say. Crazy game 2, we'll get into that, but, you know, I'm going to hit on game 3. We ended up winning 13-4, but that 1 o'clock game didn't start till about, 5 o'clock?
5 or 6.
5 o'clock because, well, there was a rain delay, and they're like, oh, we'll push it off to 2, you know, the rain should pass by then, things like that. But everyone was talking like, okay, Georgia State did drive down here, but the Sunbelt said cutoff time's 4 o'clock. So if they don't start the game before 4, then they're not going to be able to play. And it takes about pitchers, everybody to get warmed up about 30 minutes or so. So the game the first pitch had to be thrown by at least 3:30 or 3 o'clock. But if they weren't warming up by 3:30, 3:20, game was going to be called. Well, 2 o'clock rolls around, and they're like, well, it was still storming. It was still pouring down rain. And they're like, well, we're going to, it's postponed. We don't know what time it's going to play. They call Coach Silva. We're playing this game. They call the Sun Belt. They gave them, you got till 11:59 at night for this game to be ended. So they were like, okay, we're going to play it no matter if it starts at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. They were playing that game. Well, they start to get ready to warm up, and Georgia State comes in on their bus. And if you've been to the new Tom Stadium, behind the third base dugout is a bunch of gravel. It's just freshly laid down. The only thing under it's mud. Well, it's been pouring down rain. And a big old charter bus comes driving in, and guess what? It gets stuck. And, it's just kind of the icing on the cake. The Georgia State bus getting stuck at the Tom. Had to get what is it called? A tow truck? Yeah, that's what it's called. Tow truck. Come. Yeah, thank you. Had to dig deep for that one.
Literally.
Yeah, but they had to get the tow truck out. The game eventually started, and, I guess it ended up helping the Red Wolves. But going on game 2, all I got to say about game 2 is Jake Henry Williams.
Yeah, and we'll get into that later. But, going back to game 3 real quick before we sit at the break and really get into our baseball talk, Georgia State, I will give the baseball team credit. They were nice people. I talked to some of their coaches and some of the players during pregame of game 2. But, we were told Georgia State said they're playing this game no matter what, even if they had to walk from the hotel, which was just right, not even 100 feet from the Tom, that they wanted to play the game. So they get over there, they're swinging the bat or whatever, and I will give the coach credit because I was shooting B-roll for ESPN, and, they were all watching me, make sure I didn't get too close, and, I just want to shout out them for making sure that I didn't, get hurt or whatever. But, no, they wanted to play no matter what because of the Sun Belt standings and everything, again, which we'll get into in the next segment. But, they wanted to play. Both teams wanted to play, and it ended up a Red Wolves victory by a landslide.
Yes, literally.
But yeah, so we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll come back and talk about some baseball from the Tom right here on the Red Wolf Roundtable on ASU-TV.
Students should watch ASU-TV just to see the creativity that a college student can get. The creativity that some of these students have is truly amazing. Getting that experience can really just take you further, and I feel like our program does that for a lot of students.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Now it's time to dive into more baseball talk about this past weekend series against Georgia State and the midweek win against Little Rock. Cooper, so just going back to that game 2 that you said you wanted to get into about Jake Henry Williams.
You're seeing the graphic now. He came in, 2 hits, 2 home runs, and 4 RBIs. So the Red Wolves, they ended up winning that game 6-5, and, they were up 2-0 all game, and then next thing you know, Georgia State, they end up coming back, taking a 4-2 lead. Jake Henry Williams steps up to plate with the guy on, hits a home run, tie ball game. They're back in it. Bottom of the 8th rolls around. Jake Henry Williams back up to plate. Guy on first. Boom! Knocks one. See you later. They take the lead 6-4, and the Red Wolves would go on to hold on for a win with Richter coming in. He did a good job. Bases were actually loaded with 1 out. He got a guy to pop up. They scored a run off a sac fly, then got another guy to strike. He popped up again to get the win 6-5. But, it was a good game by Jake Henry Williams. This is a team that, that it's a new team. I mean, we didn't see this type of fight from this team last year. I mean, we have the lead 2-0. We give up 4 runs in an inning, we're done. We give up 4 runs. We get down 4-2. They lay down and they accept defeat. Not this team. They continue to fight. Coach Silva knows what he's doing with pitching. They weren't doing too hot. They gave up 4 runs. The bases were loaded. Brought in Boss. He ended up getting out the inning, and he got that last strikeout to get the 3rd out, and he looked towards the dugout, screamed at him, got him hyped up. He was jacked up. Lely came in, and then he was dialed in. And, the bats were going this weekend. We're talking about last week, I just wish this team had some pop to them, and they found that pop this weekend.
Right, and in this series, too, was kind of a testament to who this team is and what their identity is, because Game 1 happens, and just kind of walk you guys through the series. Game 1 happens, bottom of the 9th, 2 outs, I think it was a 1-2 count. Georgia State's guy checks his swing. They call it a strike, game over. Of course, one of the coaches and some of the players had some choice words.
They were yelling at him.
Yeah, they had some choice words, got ejected, got suspended from the series, and I think another 2 games. I could be wrong, but I think it was 4 games or 3 or 4 games. Game 2 happens, of course. Jake Henry Williams hits 2 home runs. Quiller hits a home run, and the Red Wolves win. So now you're up 2-0. You have the rain delay in Game 3, the bus getting stuck. 14-3 the final score, and
yeah.
I mean, for the first time in a long time, Arkansas State was able to get a home series Sun Belt Conference sweep that we haven't seen for a while. And speaking of Sun Belt Conference, the Red Wolves, they're over 500 for the first time in a hot minute.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the standings now. You want to be in that top 10 area, and the top 3, they kind of have their own. They're kind of away from everything. But if you're looking at 4 through 10, all it takes is one series to really jumble things up. I mean, 4 through 11 as well. I mean, 9-12, 9-12, 9-12, 10-11, 10-11, and then 11-10 and 11-10. Then Louisiana just a game above App State and Arkansas State. It's going to be very interesting because you're just looking at these standings. You're like, man, anything can happen. Like Arkansas State's at 5, but you have to look at our last 3 remaining conference series to really just see how tough it's going to be to get this and to stay in the top 10. This upcoming weekend we have Southern Miss at Southern Miss. That's going to be a tough one. They're ranked in the top 25, and then we come back home against Troy, and then we go back on the road at Louisiana.
Yeah, I mean, the weekend series, you're seeing it now. I mean, it's going to be tough competition. I mean, you're not in a must-win scenario between Southern Miss and Troy, but you have to win the Louisiana series.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the Southern Miss series. You need to still at least a game. Troy's at home. If you could somehow still the series and rake out 2 wins, that would be nice. And then the Cajuns, depending on the standings, that might be a must-win series. But if you can still win at Southern Miss, you're in a good spot for the remaining series. And I feel like if you're able to do that, at least still a game, then you'll be coming into that Troy series feeling really good about yourself.
Right, and so here's the thing, too, that a lot of people got to understand. Baseball is not just a game where you can look at a matchup and say, hey, this team's going to win by this much like you can in football or basketball. Baseball, no matter what, you have to give the next guy up the chance to hit. And, that's what a lot of people love about the game of baseball, myself included. But until you get those 3 outs, you got to give every guy an opportunity to swing that bat. And the metal bats, they rake.
Yeah.
Okay, let me use some baseball terminology. They rake. And so you get Quiller in his, his little bent down stance, and he hits one over the wall, and he rallies off in the leadoff spot. French gets on, Jumper gets on. You never know. Arkansas State can come in with a lot of momentum, and Southern Miss may be on the chill zone thinking, oh, we're at the top of the conference. We've been notoriously good in baseball for a while. We could take a back seat and kind of just relax, get some, just some routine plays. That's when the Arkansas State Red Wolves come in and, they put 5 runs on them on the road, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Let's calm down and get back to the status quo.
Yeah, no, for sure, because you never know who's going to be on that game. I mean, Jake Henry Williams, he only had 3 at-bats, and he came out there and did that, hit 2 home runs, and, Jake Henry Williams really never had that pop. And then game 3 rolls around on Sunday, and then you have Campbell hitting a home run. You have Patrick Ingskov hitting another home run. You have all these guys that are kind of finding their stride, and this team's really getting brought together. I mean, you even had what's his name? Raul Torres getting on base. He's not. He will tell you he's not a hitter, but he was able to get on base. He was able to get some good at bats. So if this team can get hot at the right time and find that stride of momentum, who says they can't go on and win the Sun Belt and then be playing in a regional somewhere?
Hey man, let's just not get ahead of ourselves because
I mean, we got to bring it up now because we won't be able to talk about it.
That is true, and we are light years away from a Tommy Raffo-led team. And now I'm not saying that to diss Coach Raffo, but the difference in coaching styles is really obvious when it comes to this team. Now, what's really going to put forth a different, circumstances is if they come home to play Troy and they get up in a high-scoring game, or if they score 6 to 7 runs on Troy and Troy's only scored 1, can they preserve that lead? We saw it versus Georgia State, but can they do it with a team that's higher up in the conference?
I feel like they do. They for sure can. I mean, if it was a Raffo team, no lead was safe with them.
Well, I mean, you saw that last year, especially against App State.
Yeah, we were up by 10, and then they rallied 12 in the final inning. You're like, man. But
enough time because of the drop dead time.
Yeah, no, but this team this year, Coach Silva's proven that he has the guys in the bullpen that are able to come in and lock in when needed to. He doesn't matter if you're his go-to guy who's going to be lights out. If you're off, he will take you out of the game real quick. It doesn't matter if you've been having an ERA of a 0.89 the past 3 games. If you come in there, give up 2 runs and get the bases loaded, you're out. I mean, he does trust some of his pitchers. Like, one pitcher I know he trusts is Richter, because he kind of went up to Richter in that game 2 when he had the bases loaded. He couldn't find the strike zone. It felt like he kind of went up there and said, you're staying in this game. I'm not going to take you out. You need to figure it out, and he did exactly that. I feel like Richter, he's our closer. Silva trusts him. So, we have the bullpen that's needed, and it feels like, I was saying this last week, but now everything's just kind of gelling together just how they want it to be.
Right. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the Red Wolves perform in the last 3 conference series of the year. Of course, Cooper and I graduate on May 10th, so after the first game of the Troy series, we no longer, we'll be covering the Red Wolves for Red Wolf Roundtable. But we're going to sit at the break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the spring game, a little bit more about some football right here on Red Wolf Roundtable.
When you say experience counts, it's experience that counts for a lifetime.
Boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it. Quitting was never an option. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. And this past Saturday was the spring football game. And as me and Tris were talking last week, it's time to talk a little bit more about football because once summer hits, football will be in full swing and, maybe there's a couple of recruits walking around on this campus.
Yeah, and I was actually going to bring that up. So for those of you that don't know, well, I'm sure a lot of you don't know because you weren't there. But yesterday,
unless you were.
Yeah, unless you were that one guy in the stands. So yesterday, Cooper and myself, as well as Kate and Marsh, went to the football stadium to take some senior pictures, and just kind of enjoy some time hanging out. And we were taking some pictures, and we were like, hey, let's swing a bat at this rubber basketball that we have, because I had purchased a mini hoop for some use around the ASU-TV newsroom just to make a new dynamic in the workspace, make it more fun and more enjoyable.
A little dunk contest.
Yeah, a little dunk contest. So Cooper was like, hey, I'll bat first. I was like, oh, okay, I'll pitch. And then Kate was like, oh, I'll go play outfield. So the first two, Cooper swings and misses because, I just have the arm of Nolan Ryan in his prime.
Oh, yeah. Landing 4 feet in front of me, and I was still swinging.
I mean, hey, Javier Baez didn't play for the Cubs.
Hey.
But then the third one, I put it right there on the money, and Cooper swung with all his might. It hit a 90-mile-an-hour rocket right at my face. And I don't know what Cooper had heard me say about him before that made him want to do that, but it about knocked me clean out.
Yeah, and then we're like, all right, let's take some pictures before we start getting bloody noses. And we got one picture in, and who walked out there?
Caleb Gullahorn walked out.
He was walking out there with a football. We're like, oh, Tristan was like, oh, I'm going to go for a pass. And he was like, hey. We're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, he walked out and he said, hey, you guys not in trouble or anything, but we got some recruits here, so just, go ahead and leave and you guys can come back and take pictures. I was like, oh, okay, hey, tell Coach Jones, like, hey, we're sorry. We're just taking some senior photos. We didn't mean to bother anybody. We'll leave, whatever, go. But, we probably should have figured that they had somebody there when, A, the waterfalls were still going, and B, they had music playing from the speakers, and C, they had a welcome home graphic on the video board. But no, the three of us didn't think to put those three connections together. We're like, oh, it's just being left on.
All we saw was an open gate to the stadium. We're like, oh, sweet. Let's go on in. I mean, not the gate to the stands where we have to walk down. It was a gate to the field was just wide open. We're like, oh, perfect. Easier for us. I mean, they leave that stadium open all the time. You could probably find a TikTok video athletics got mad about.
Shout out G-Fed.
Exactly. Amazing. Loved it.
Yeah. Actually ranked as the best Sunbelt stadium that he's ever been to.
I mean, it is. A lot better than ULM.
Everything's better than ULM.
Exactly.
But anyways, so this past Saturday, the spring game was held, or what do they call it, the Pack Day preview? I don't know. It's a spring game. It's not even a spring game. It's just a glorified, hey, let's go have fun.
It's a glorified two-hand touch game where they wear pads with occasional tackling. It's kind of, you used to turn on ESPN around this time. It would be a Saturday. There's nothing going on. Baseball games they don't show. This is back in the day when college baseball was never shown on TV unless it was, I guess, the regionals or super regionals, or once it got to the playoffs. MLB, a game was probably on, but your luck, it was blacked out in your area and you couldn't watch it. And the only thing that was on besides some rerun games were a spring game. You'd watch it. It'd be a little scrimmage between both teams. They would do a draft style. But now it's offense versus defense, and somehow offense won 60-38. How did they get points? I don't know.
Well, I will say this, and Caton's still jealous about this, and I will say he's jealous about this because he's in the control room, and I don't want him to come out and hit me, but he's jealous. Corey Rucker, as he switches to my camera, Corey Rucker went on a pretty route, and Jalen Rayner threw him the ball, and I was right in the perfect position, which I'll put the B-roll over my voice, and you just see the ball floating down with the camera, and I come down, and it's just right there. I felt like I was Cooper Milder on the sidelines that day.
I'm glad you're taking my honor. No, but, normally we always say, well, you can tell how the team's going to be through the spring game. And, last year watching it, I was kind of really I was like, okay, our defense looks a lot better than they were. The offense didn't look that well, but the defense looked really good. Season went on, that kind of went on to prove the defense improved a lot. The offense really just wasn't there when we needed it the most at times. But this year, I don't know. It felt like it's almost a copy pace of the team from last year. I didn't see anything that wowed me. It wasn't like, okay, Rayner and Rucker look dynamic already in the spring game, and this is going to be a fun season. It wasn't like, okay, so-and-so stepping up on defense. He's in a part of every play, this, and that. It's kind of one of those that's just, this looks the same, or I guess that's just how the spring game is now. I could just be thinking into it too much, but it honestly looked just like a copy-paste team of last year.
Well, and here's something that we have to remember about the spring game, is that a lot of those guys that were playing aren't going to be on the roster come fall.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys that are going to be on the roster on the fall probably aren't here yet, or they're probably still in the portal, or they're probably still about to graduate high school or whatever, because, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, I heard this from somebody, but, and I kind of believe this myself, but the way the college football world is nowadays, you have the transfer portal, you have a certain window where people can go in and you can take them out of the portal, but just because, and I'm just using this as an example, just because Jalen Rayner plays in the spring game does not mean he's going to play this season. He could come tomorrow and say, yeah, I'm going to enter the transfer portal and sit out the season until he finds a place to go. Corey Rucker can do the same thing. Now, I don't think Corey Rucker would do that because Corey Rucker's trying to get to the NFL. But, we were missing McKeelan Thomas, Tim Hardiman, Nate Marte. There was a whole bunch of people that were missing because they either went pro, they went pro, they transferred out, or they just aren't playing no more. So the roster and the people on the field at the spring game aren't going to be – you probably are seeing 50 to 55% of the people that are going to be on the roster come the fall.
Yeah, I don't know. It just felt – I just didn't – there was nothing that just impressed me about the spring game. I feel like nowadays, and you're kind of seeing it across all of college football, the spring game, I don't know, they're trying to do too much with it, I feel like. Just keep it simple. Yeah, it's cool. Oh, we're going to add one-on-ones between wide receiver and a cornerback, or offense versus defensive line. We're going to do these one-on-ones. It's honestly a glorified practice, but I would like it better if we could go back to how it was. A scrimmage, just a scrimmage between both teams. To just, go out there, play football. They're trying to, and I get you're trying to get fans to come in, but it's a spring game. Not too many people are jacked up about going to a red and white game. They want to go there to see what the team's like. And I get you're trying to get the crowd into it and do all that. Sure, do whatever, but go back to just the standard scrimmage. You're going to play ones and twos, and then twos and versus ones, and one against one. Just see what y'all can do out there. All this other stuff, it's honestly, spring games are so boring now. I'm not saying they were entertaining before, but they were a lot better than they are now.
Well, yeah, and definitely if you come back and you give the original aspect of the spring game, that opens up opportunities for ASU-TV to maybe broadcast it.
Yeah.
And do stuff like that. But I don't know. I just think where we are right now in the world of college athletics, especially college football, a lot of the things that you and I grew up loving, and a lot of the things that people loved growing up back in the early 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s, you're never going to see that again because of the portal. And the portal, I will say this. The portal is a good thing, and the portal is a bad thing. And I don't want to get on the rant right now because I'm not really 100% there, but it's good because it gives players an opportunity where they don't get it where they originally go to. But it's a bad thing because it takes away a lot of the aspects from the game that a lot of people grew up loving, and a lot of the reasons why a lot of players are playing in it nowadays. But I just think where we sit today, what we saw in the spring game, if they don't turn it around, you're looking at another 6-win season.
Yeah, it's honest. 6-7 win.
Yeah.
Season. It's nothing going to be special. last year we were thinking, oh, we have a chance to make the Sun Belt title game, blah, blah, blah. Well, we proved we can't win on the road, so it didn't matter. I mean, we got one road win against Southern Miss, I think.
Oh, no, we won against Georgia State, too.
Oh, yeah, forgot about that game. 2 road wins.
He was the one that was actually there, and he don't remember.
Yeah, terrible city. But, you know, I don't know. This team, they have a lot of work to do, and, you know, like we said, the spring game, it doesn't mean anything anymore, so they probably weren't going 100%. They weren't really doing too much, so I guess them not trying made them look like last year's team, for all to be said, and we might go 8-5 again. You know, 8-5, you can't complain. That's winning at least 7 games in a season and then winning your bowl game. But, you know, I'd like to be able to start getting up there because with our schedule upcoming, besides the Arkansas game, we don't really have a terrible non-conference schedule that we're having to work with. I mean, we play Kennesaw State at home. That should be an easy win. But the non-conference is looking at, if we had a good team that can compete, you're looking at a 9-3 season at best. I mean, I can go crazy and say you're looking at a 10-2 season, losing to Arkansas and then probably some other game we should.
State.
Yeah, Iowa State. That's going to be at home this year, which I would hope this stadium would sell out, but I don't know. It takes a lot for your fans. Maybe a coach that just wants to be unfaithful to his basketball team and leave.
Well, I mean, you know, I just think that in the grand scheme of things, you know, here's what I'll say. I don't care if Arkansas State has to cheat to get the win over Arkansas. I just want to see the Red Wolves beat Arkansas.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you talk about the unfaithfulness of college athletics. You talk about the unloyalty, the dishonesty, like all the bad things about college athletics and college football. The only thing I care about moving forward, other than graduation and finding a job, Mom, I promise I'm looking, is that I want to see the Red Wolves beat the Razorbacks, because I have had a hatred for the Razorbacks for my 22 years on this earth, and there would be nothing more satisfying to see Arkansas State beat them.
I feel like you could ask a bunch of Red Wolf fans now. I could be wrong, but I feel like 70% of them would say, if I asked them, hey, would you rather Arkansas State win the Sun Belt Conference? I'm not saying go to the playoffs, but win the Sun Belt Conference. Playoffs? We're talking about practice. No, but if I asked Red Wolf fans, it'd be like, hey, would you rather win the Sun Belt and win the Sun Belt Conference game, or miss a bowl game, go win, have a 3-win season, but one of those wins is against Arkansas? I think 70% of the fans would say that win against Arkansas.
Right. Well, that's you know, if you find Arkansas State fans, because a lot of them are actually Arkansas fans and they're just living in this part of the state. But regardless, it's going to be a lot of fun, that game. You know, hopefully we'll both be there. I know you've got some opportunities coming up once you graduate, so hopefully you'll make the trip back down, even if I have to drag you by your toes.
I'll be here, don't worry.
But no, you know, it's an exciting time for Arkansas State athletics, and then exciting times here at Red Wolf Roundtable as we look to pass the torch, so to speak, and you'll find out who's going to get that torch next week on the awards show, because we'll have a special ceremony dedicated to that. But I think that's going to do it.
Yeah.
For this episode of Red Wolf Roundtable. I'm Tristan Harlan. That's Cooper the Juicebox Melder saying goodbye, so long, and have a great rest of your week. You've been watching Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV.